For decades, Japan's heavy engineering giants have dominated the physical construction of the global economy, executing the world's most massive hydrocarbon processing facilities. To remain competitive despite high domestic labor costs, these firms learn to leverage the immense purchasing power and global logistics networks of Japanese trading houses like Mitsubishi and Mitsui to procure materials. But the core engine of their historical wealth is stalling. Upstream oil and gas development is entering a long-term structural decline, turning hydrocarbon megaprojects into a sunset industry. Simultaneously, intense supply chain friction and inflation in raw material costs are compressing the profit margins of traditional large-scale construction. To survive, Japan's big three engineering, procurement, and construction firms, JGC, Chiyoda, and Toyo, are actively decoupling their balance sheets from the volatility of fossil fuels. They are redirecting their engineering expertise towards two specific growth areas: sovereign health security through advanced biopharma manufacturing, and the global energy transition via green ammonia and sustainable aviation fuel. Executing this pivot requires abandoning the brute force construction models of the past. The new operational baseline relies on artificial intelligence, advanced modular engineering, and complex risk syndication. Looking at the 2024 and 2025 fiscal periods reveals exactly how these companies are managing the macroeconomic pressure of this transition. This matrix tracks their financial guidance. JGC revised its 2025 top-line revenue forecast downward by 33 billion yen. However, their segment profit forecast was revised upward to 29.5 billion yen. JGC is systematically shedding high-risk contracts, trading top-line revenue for bottom-line stability. They're optimizing their portfolio by selling off secondary assets, such as their domestic water utility business, to concentrate capital on high-yield engineering core competencies. Toyo Engineering faces a tighter financial reality in the current climate. Looking at Toyo's column, they recorded 278 billion yen in revenue, but material inflation and supply chain delays squeezed their margins under fixed-price contracts, leaving a net profit of just 2 billion yen. To counter this pressure, Toyo relies on agile subsidiaries like Indonesia's IKPT, executing specialized geothermal projects across active volcanic regions as a primary profit engine. Chiyoda is defending its margins through aggressive joint venture restructuring. When their partner faced insolvency on the massive Golden Pass LNG project in the United States, Chiyoda negotiated an entirely new joint venture structure to isolate their financial exposure and rescue the project's profitability. That contractual intervention protected their margins and stabilized a 7,399 billion yen order backlog. In modern EPC, raw revenue growth is secondary to precise margin defense and risk isolation. To replace the volume of fading hydrocarbon contracts, the big three are securing complex builds in the domestic life sciences sector. The Japanese government is deploying heavy subsidies to localize biopharma manufacturing, aiming to reduce the country's reliance on foreign drug supply chains. This 3D schematic represents a major target of that capital: Chiyoda's 50 billion yen active pharmaceutical ingredient facility for AGC in Yokohama. During normal operations, the plant will produce commercial mRNA and gene therapies, but the engineering requirement here is dual-use functionality. In a crisis, the infrastructure must rapidly reconfigure for mass vaccine mobilization. Toyo Engineering is targeting this same sector by altering the architecture of pharmaceutical plants. Traditional cleanrooms use a monolithic ballroom design. Placing multiple process units inside one massive controlled space requires high initial capital and constant HVAC energy costs. This comparison illustrates Toyo's engineering solution, the MyLock system. Instead of one large room, each processing unit is housed inside its own individually controlled micro-contained module. This containment strategy gives clients flexibility. They can physically swap manufacturing lines to produce different drugs without shutting down and revalidating the entire facility. JGC is moving beyond physical construction to integrate digital healthcare technology and operate data-driven smart hospitals. Advanced biopharma EPC has outgrown standard commercial construction. Due to its scale and technical complexity, governments now fund and regulate it as critical sovereign defense infrastructure. The second major structural growth pillar for these firms is engineering the global energy transition. Building decarbonization infrastructure presents a severe financial paradox. Scaling up low-carbon technologies requires immense capital. For an engineering firm operating under a fixed-price contract, taking on that level of exposure for unproven technology is an unacceptable balance sheet risk. This network map details the industry's structural response. To execute these megaprojects, historical competitors like JGC and Toyo Engineering are merging their intellectual property and capital to share the risk. Through this joint venture, they are actively co-bidding on infrastructure for green ammonia and sustainable aviation fuels. They are also syndicating technical risk by bringing in external licensors, integrating proprietary chemical processes from firms like KBR Incorporated into the shared venture. This collaborative model stabilizes sector-wide profit margins by reducing the pressure for the destructive underbidding that previously bankrupted firms attempting to secure market share. Collaborative risk syndication is now the only mathematically viable model to finance the physical infrastructure of the energy transition. This strategic pivot by Japan's Big Three has generated 4 clear ripple effects reshaping heavy industry. First, supply chain localization provides engineering firms with a high-margin domestic safety net, insulating them from volatile currency swings and macroeconomic downturns. Second, information technology now dictates the execution of heavy industrial projects. JGC's implementation of an AI-driven data quality framework proves that algorithm-based predictive project management is now a baseline operational requirement to survive. Third, the financial scale of decarbonization has made risk syndication permanent. Megaprojects will increasingly be built by corporate alliances rather than solitary contractors. Finally, the pivot places a high premium on elite human capital. Building these facilities depends entirely on a scarce pool of multidisciplinary engineers who understand the intersection of biotechnology and data science. JGC's global training hubs and Chiyoda's retention of specialized bioengineers act as the true economic moats defending these organizations. By controlling the underlying biotechnology, modular design, and financial risk structures, JGC, Chiyoda, and Toyo have positioned themselves as the architects of the next global economy.